Hello everyone, Juxtaposition here. Today's video is going to continue my exploration of North Marin County and the Luke Skywalker Ranch, or the Skywalker properties, as well as the Metallica James Hetfield donation of 3 gifts of 1,000 acres of the Luis Ranch from Lucas Valley Road north to where I was inspecting the perimeter along the Indian Valley Way. And also I explored the Fred Corda Ranch, which is a dairy ranching area north of Novato Boulevard, but backed up against the Lucas Skywalker Ranch properties and Stafford Lake watershed, which includes the now golf course, which is called Indian Valley Golf Club Golf Course, Stafford Lake Park watershed, and the Longview Stables on Vineyard Road, which is a long cul-de-sac which truncates at the stables and the Indian Valley Golf Course Country Club. Links. Hope you can hear me okay. We have a lot of air traffic today. It's Valentine's Day Tuesday. I have more traffic over my town than an airport does, which also means that there's active chemtrail dumpings going on about 20,000 feet over my head, which has been going on all last night and all this morning and will be all day, because I think they must believe that swatting the flies on Valentine's Day is some kind of a strategic advantage when you're trying to spray humans like bugs with aluminum oxide and lithium and titanium and barium products. God knows what other toxic chemicals of Operation Sea Spray, which is now a NATO exercise. All right, so my last video I discussed the Renaissance Pleasure Fair, which is in the northeast corner of Marin County, a CIA military intelligence district in California. And you shouldn't be surprised at all to learn that that is a military strategic location. That Black Point, the boat launch, Petaluma River, the Black Point Forest, where I found the NATO motor generator, which was parked in front of a vacant lot, undeveloped parcel on, that was found on Green Point Lane. If you want the address, it was between number 29 and number 35. You can tell there's a gap there, right? That's because there's probably 2 parcels of vacant land, and that's where the NATO diesel power generator on a trailer was parked, and I took a photograph of its serial numbers. United States Marine Corps property. Directly above where the Renaissance Fair used to operate, just below, off of Atherton Avenue, today that is known as the Stone Tree Golf Course. All right, that was Ron and Phyllis Patterson, who operated the Renaissance Pleasure Fair, first in Agora Hills and then for 28 years in Marin County at the China Camp location in 1968-69, which is next door to our courthouse and our jail and our county offices in San Rafael. And then they repositioned it here to Black Point Forest in 1971, and we're there for 27 years. Now, if you think like me now, as a military person, you know, they're all about surveillance and securing a perimeter and establishing a perimeter. So, you know, that's where I found the NATO generator motor, right, was directly above where the Renaissance Fair activities were. And you know that that's all integrated with Hollywood and Bill Graham, Wulf Grajonca, who lives nearby in Corte Madera, number 800 Corte Madera Drive specifically, behind a big iron gate atop Camino Alta near Chapman Drive. and Corte Madera Drive and Camino Alto Drive, way up there, looking out over Belvedere, Tiburon, San Francisco, the Golden Gate Bridge, and guess what? He could see over to the Hamilton Air Force Base, which the Air Force controlled most of that North Marin County where the Renaissance Fair was. It has today been redeveloped as a housing development known as Belle Marin Keys, because they built the houses out on these little peninsulas with a pond, saltwater ponds surrounding them. There's no real boating going on there because there's no outlet into the bay. But it's next door to San Pablo Bay. And again, it was turned over to the United States Army after World War II, and then subdivided out. Now it's a golf course, and it is a housing development, and it's a wetlands for the birds. But if you go 1 mile to the west, you'll be where I was reconnoitering on Sunday afternoon whilst the chemtrails were being dumped over San Francisco, Belvedere, Tiburon, in close proximity to where I was, but a little bit further south, about 6 to 8 miles south of where I was. Anyway, I traveled 4 cul-de-sacs. You could call them 3 because we've got cul-de-sacs off cul-de-sacs. So I'm going to say 3 cul-de-sacs. The first one being a road called Vineyard Road, which is off Sutro Avenue, which is off San Marin Drive, which is Atherton Avenue. It's kind of tricky, right? So I told you that Black Point and the boat launch and Black Point, where the Renaissance Fair was, is on Atherton Avenue. Atherton Avenue gives way to Harbor Avenue just below the boat launch. There is no harbor, though, so that's kind of deceitful, kind of deceptive, right? So anyway, Atherton Avenue, where the Renaissance Fair was and where the golf course is, the golf course that is known as Stone Tree Golf Course, at the corner of that golf course entrance and Atherton Avenue, that's the extreme eastern end of Atherton Avenue. If you reverse direction and head west on Atherton, you'll get to Highway 101, which is the Ventura Highway for you Hollywood, Southern California people. Cross over that, and the name changes from Atherton Avenue to San Marin Drive. Stay on the same road. It's Atherton Avenue, now under the name of San Marin Drive. Continue, it's undulating, it's hilly, it's up and down. Eventually you'll come to Novato Boulevard, where there's San Marin High School on the northwest corner. Look both ways. It's a four-way stop. Across the street, and Atherton Avenue, San Marin Drive becomes Sutro Avenue. Sutro. That's important because of the Sutro Baths in San Francisco and the Sutro Nevada City, Virginia City water pump station up in Carson City, Virginia City, Nevada for the Silver Legacy, the Comstock load. It's the Sutro family. They got a street named after them in Marin County called Sutro Avenue. Continue on that southern direction on Sutro Avenue, and it tees into Vineyard Road. Turn right. 1.5 miles until you get to the Wild Horse Valley Drive. It's mostly uphill. And it goes uphill about 1,000 feet, 900 feet uphill, over 1.5 miles. So there's a couple steep sections on it. There are approximately 32 homes on Vineyard Road. Now, there are more homes than that because it has at least 2 cul-de-sacs of the same name, Vineyard Road, off Vineyard Road. So it's just like Benedict Canyon Drive, where they have a Benedict Canyon Drive off Benedict Canyon Drive, where Elizabeth Montgomery used to live, or Cielo Drive, where they have a Cielo Drive off Cielo Drive cul-de-sac, where Sharon Tate was murdered. But that's confusing because it's really Bella Drive, because it's Bella if you turn right, and it's Cielo if you turn left. But if you go up just about 500 yards from that corner, you'll have a Cielo Drive off Cielo Drive, another Cielo Drive cul-de-sac. So there's two Cielo Drive cul-de-sacs off Cielo Drive, which eventually tees into a road that turns into Angelo Drive above the murder scene. You have something kind of similar to that in Marin County with Vineyard Road and two cul-de-sacs off that road. So anyway, it's a grand total of probably another 10 to 12, let's call it a dozen, a baker's dozen, 12, 13 houses that I didn't count when I told you that there's 32 houses. So perhaps there's 45 houses on Vineyard Road from the corner of Sutro Avenue and Vineyard Road heading west toward the Stafford Lake and the Longview horse stables, which has a do not trespassing sign, permission by owner required. And you can see the golfers in their little motorized buggies, their golf carts. You can see the golfers playing. So you're at the golf course, which is a nice place to be, I guess, but it is no trespassing. Members only, right? So anyway, a lot of big houses there. I'd say the average price of a house on that road, once you get past Wild Horse Valley Drive, which is close to Sutro Drive, but it's a little further west, I'd say the average price is, $2 million to $8 million, something like that, $2 to $8 million for those 32 to 45 houses. All right, I circled back. I returned this time to the corner of Wild Horse Valley Drive. You can Google it. That is a 1.3 mile cul-de-sac, which is all undulating initially, and then it's uphill, then it's steep uphill, and then it's very much embedded into a deep, dark canyon with steep walls, and it dead ends at 180 Wild Horse Valley Drive. And wouldn't you know, there's a lot of trees there to block your view, but if you look through the branches, you get a spectacular view of the Renaissance Fair, okay, the United States Air Force, what was their property, Marin Keys, the Hamilton Air Force Base, and there's a little hill about 8 miles away that obscures the crime scene for where Bill Graham was murdered. He was murdered at Sonoma Creek near Sears Point Raceway on October 25th, 1999. And you would be able to see that from the top of Wild Horse Valley Drive were it not for this last little bump near Sears Point Raceway, which is about 8.5 miles away from the dead end of the cul-de-sac. And that, see that play on words? Dead end, cul-de-sac. Cielo Drive dead end was a dead end for Sharon Tate, for Abigail Folger, for Stephen Parent, for Wojtek Frykowski, for Tom Coomer, Jay Sebring. It's a dead end. And Easton Drive is a cul-de-sac dead end off Benedict Canyon. And that was a dead end for Paul Levy Byrne, who was married to Jean Harlow, age 21. Paul Levy Byrne was 42 years old. And after he died, Jean Harlow dated Ben Siegel, Bugsy Siegel. Jean Harlow was under contract with Howard Hughes and Hughes Aircraft, Hughes RKO Pictures. Howard Hughes was a partner in RKO Radio Pictures, and Jean Harlow was a contract actress, so of course he would date her, as well as Bugsy Siegel, who's the Jewish mafia for Beverly Hills. All right, anyway, getting back to Wild Horse Valley, make a U-turn, go back down. There are approximately 50 homes during this 1.3 mile journey. I'm here to tell you that the canyon walls are steep, and so that the sun up, dawn, and sunset would be 1 hour before what it would normally be if you weren't in such of a canyon-based cul-de-sac. So you're chopping off 2 hours of daylight all year round if you live in one of these places like Vineyard Road or Wild Horse Road. They don't have southern exposure, and they're obscured. The sun is obscured. Now, of course, we have aluminum chemtrails now, and that is dropping our temperature. Today's temperature normally would be 45 at a low and probably a 65 at a high this time of year, Valentine's Day. But no, because we have chemtrail dumping every day for the last 90 days, it started out 31 and the high today is 53. So we are way out of whack with normal. We're 15 degrees below normal temperatures for the San Francisco Bay Area. And you won't hear any meteorologist or weather person on television mention chemtrails or mention that our temperatures are 10 to 15 degrees below normal. And I believe that's true with New Jersey, Atlantic City, and New York. But, please correct me if I'm wrong. But I think that we're going into a global cooling for the summer when they have some event planned. There's an event that's planned. And meanwhile, we're continuing to destroy the small businesses and try to centralize everything into the college or corporations. And then when the customers have no choice, we'll go to the central bank digital currency when you'll have no choice of how to pay for your groceries. Because as long as they're small businesses and family dairies and farms, people can scavenge for food and parts. But as soon as the corporations take over everything, the college of corporations and the banks will control all the food, all the water, all the ways to do business. It's called full spectrum dominance. All right, my last cul-de-sac has made my way almost back to Vineyard Road. They have a community tennis court. Hit the brakes, turn left, and again climbed uphill on Palomero Road. It's 1/3 of a mile. There are 13 houses on Palomero Road. I went to a cocktail party at number 10 Palomero Road. Actually, it's Palomero Circle. There's a cul-de-sac off a cul-de-sac. When you get to the top of Palomero Road, and there's 2 houses additional on a downhill just below. But if you turn right, it's Palomero Circle, and there's 14 houses on the circle, and that's also a 1/3 of a mile climb uphill. But on the very first house, number 10, Palomero Circle, I attended a cocktail party there in the year 2009. And the person who was there, I asked how much they paid for the house. It's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, 2,850 square foot home on the side of a cliff. So I wasn't particularly impressed with the house, but I knew it was in an expensive zip code. Anyway, she was a lesbian and told me that it was a rental home and that she had a connection to have it. Well, she took a very important job for the Obama administration like 1 week after I had that cocktail party. So she moved to Georgetown, and that home was transferred to another tenant. And I was there on Sunday, and there was a expensive Porsche Cayenne SUV parked out front, and then 2 SUVs in the driveway, probably getting ready for the Super Bowl party. But I think that's a provisional house for CIA people in the government or in the fake government, crisis actors for the Obama administration or for the Sleepy Joe Biden administration, if you want to call it that. I'd call it like a really bad, grammar school play. Anyway, I count the houses. 13 houses on Palomero Road, 14 houses on Palomero Circle. There are 50 houses on Wild Horse Valley. There are 32 houses on Vineyard. And you add up all those numbers, and you will be at 109 houses. That's approximately what Benedict Canyon looked like when Sharon Tate and Abigail Folger were murdered. I think there were 107 houses in Benedict Canyon in the zip code 90210 Benedict Canyon sector, above the Peter Falk House, above the Walt Disney Mansion. There were 107 houses. And I did a comparable tour here in Marin County. Now, let me just put my notes aside for a second. All those walled canyons and all those cul-de-sac dead ends backed up to the Metallica ranch, which we call the James Hetfield Metallica 1,000 acres that he donated, I think, under duress. He purchased the property in 1999 and he gave it away in 2005, 2009, and 2018. He had acquired 1,150 acres in 1999. He gave away 1,000 of those acres, or 90%. In 2005, 2009, 2018, the homes that I surveyed back up to that property of the Metallica property that is now controlled by MALT, M-A-L-T, Marin Agricultural Land Trust. They also are part of the College of Marin Indian Valley campus. That backs up to the Metallica James Hetfield property, which backs up in turn to the Big Rock Ranch, which is part of the Skywalker George Lucas properties. So you have an amalgamation of the McGuire Ranch, the Bulltail Ranch, the Big Rock Ranch, the Luis Ranch, James Hetfield Metallica. Then you have the Fred Corda Ranch, which is actually 80 acres by Stafford Lake, and another 1,150 acres across the street, across Nevada Boulevard, north, across from Stafford Lake to the north. So you start adding up these properties. The George Lucas is 6,100 acres. The James Hetfield Luis Ranch is 1,000 acres. The Fred Cordo Ranch is 1,214 acres. So you're talking about 8,500 acres of pristine grazing land, which is not available for public use. There's a few horse trails. There's a lot of horse stables nearby. I believe there is an easement for horses, but you're not going to be able to go on there with a motorcycle, and most of that's going to be restricted for mountain bikers too. I'd say 99% of that property will be off limits to bicycle riders. You can ride around the perimeter on Lucas Valley Road, Nicasio, Point Reyes, Petaluma Road, Nevada Boulevard, and Indian Valley Road. Not going to be able to go on those properties. You know they got surveillance cameras everywhere. All right, so what comes away, in my point of view, is that the homes up near the top have potential for spectacular panoramic views. There is a lot of oak trees. There are a lot of oak trees, so not everybody has a spectacular view. But this is in the days before satellites and drones and clones. I would expect the United States Air Force to secure the perimeter of all these places. And I'd expect the United States Navy and Coast Guard to do so as well. And guess what? There's a United States Coast Guard strike force where the Hamilton Air Force Base used to be. You should know this is really close to where Bill Graham lived in Corte Madera, and it is really close to where Bill Graham was murdered in his Bell 206B helicopter. His pilot was Jewish, his fiancée was Jewish, and Bill Graham, Wulf Grajonca, was Jewish. He had 3 Jewish people murdered in a helicopter, not dissimilarly than how Francis Gary Powers was murdered on August 1st, 1977 at the Sepulveda Dam Recreational Facility in Van Nuys off Chandler Boulevard, where the fake Manson family was housed. Gary Powers, who worked for the CIA, was murdered in a Bell 206B helicopter. He worked for Lockheed, worked for the United States Air Force, was a spy pilot for years, and he quit. And after he quit, he was murdered. And Bill Graham, he worked for the CIA for most of his career, and he was murdered in a Bell 206B helicopter. And if you want to know what kind of distance we're talking about, well, from Atherton Avenue, at the corner of Harbor Boulevard and Atherton Avenue, where the Renaissance Pleasure Fair was, to where Bill Graham was murdered, is less than 6 miles. 6.5 miles in a straight line. And walking distance for where Bill Graham was murdered is a United States Naval Skaggs Island radio frequency center with a lot of mysterious high security pulsing wavelengths. And it was fully active on October 25th, 1991. Bill Graham was murdered walking distance across a wetlands, about 350 yards away, you have what is called the Skaggs Naval radio station, and of course it's not coming up when I want it to. So be that as it may, Bill Graham was terminated with extreme prejudice. He lived at 800 Corte Madera Drive, not that far from where I was doing my reconnoitering, not that far from Sir Francis Drake Boulevard, not that far from the College of Marin. Remember, it has two campuses. I was closer to the Indian Valley campus, which again backs up to the Metallica property, which they call the Luiz Ranch. It's spelled Luiz Ranch. And I'm here to tell you that if you wanted to lock up all these people in Benedict Canyon, Cielo Drive, Angelo Drive, Summit Ridge Drive, or in Marin County using the roads that I surveilled, Vineyard Road, cul-de-sac, Wild Horse Valley Drive, cul-de-sac, Palomero Road, cul-de-sac, Palomero Circle, cul-de-sac off the cul-de-sac, it is incredibly easy to do. You just post two Humvees at the bottom of the hill with M16 rifles and the M7 bayonet, and no one's going to be able to take their car to the grocery store. Now, can you hike out of there? Yeah, I guess. It's going to be a pretty rough hike. You got a lot of poison oak, you got a lot of undulation, you're not going to be able to carry anything with you because you're going to be hiking down to some horse stables, which you know the military will have all the perimeter roads with checkpoints. So all you do is checkpoint Charlie that grid, which wouldn't take very many checkpoints. You could do it with fewer than 5 checkpoints. To be perfectly frank, you could close off all 4 of the cul-de-sacs I mentioned, plus 2 cul-de-sacs I didn't mention. So you could close off 6 cul-de-sacs with 1 checkpoint. Now you might want to put somebody at the golf course, Indian Valley Golf Course, because that's the back way out. You could drive a car through there, and you could drive a car out on the golf course too. So actually, I guess you'd need 2 checkpoints, and you could lock up 109 houses like that overnight. They could wake up to being imprisoned in their enclave. That's what stuck out to me, is that living in there means that you're cheated out of 2 hours of daylight. You're living in a prison camp. You may not know it. There's no riffraff and tourists back there because nobody knows about it. Just me. I know. And you look at what Malt's up to, a company founded by 2 Jewish ladies, Phyllis Faber and Ellen Strauss, who escaped the Nazis from Amsterdam, Holland, and links up with Bill Strauss and has 500 acres of dairy cows ranching, and has a partnership with University of California Systems to be a zero footprint carbon farm adjacent to RCA Marconi United States Navy property, which is another 1,100 acres. Next door neighbor. They have formed a partnership with the California State Coastal Conservatory, National Resources Conservation Services, the San Francisco Bay Conservancy Program, George Lucas Skywalker Properties, to donate money and land to Malt, which now has 55,000 acres of pristine grazing lands locked up. That's the consolidation of real estate in Marin County, 55,000 acres. And they're not done. And they did that all in under 20 years. Well, scratch that. They did it in under 37 years. And they want to choke out all the small businesses. They want to, if you're one of these wealthy people that lives in Beverly Hills 90210, or if you live in Marin County in Belvedere, Tiburon, or if you live in, Kent, or you live in Ross, or you live in Novato near the Luke Skywalker Ranch, you can be imprisoned. When you go to sleep and wake up, you won't be able to drive your car out of there. Because we're in a NATO-controlled military world now. There is no United States Air Force. There is no... we're flying chemtrails out of what I used to know as a United States Air Force base. It's a NATO program to dump toxic chemicals sea spray over us. And that is being done without permission. You need a permit to put an umbrella up in your front lawn in my town, but you don't need a permit to install an Amazon Ring camera or the 5G smart grid transponders across the street and on the sidewalk with the street lamps. You don't need a permit to install another. I have 5 electronic boxes in my park. Okay, 5. There's no permits for that. They just come in and do it. So we have a county that's under maritime law, military law. Military weapon systems are being installed everywhere. And enclaves, which people think Belvedere would be a cool place to live because you got a view of San Francisco. Yeah, that's right. You got a prison cell with a view of San Francisco. So did the prisoners at Alcatraz, which is very close to Belvedere. Belvedere is the new Alcatraz. You just $30 million for a house and you can live in Alcatraz, but we'll call it Belvedere. That's where Tom Perkins lived when he died. Tom Perkins of Kleiner Perkins, the Jewish gentleman from Vienna, Austria, who partnered with Tom Perkins from White Plains, New York, to form Kleiner Perkins, which brought you Apple Computer, brought you Amazon. That's who's taken over people for they're private bankers for world domination. Anyway, that's my point today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please hit the like and subscribe. Take care.